Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. This is Roaming Prepper Channel. I'm your host, Pete. And thanks once again for joining me today as I go over the fun stuff in the world. Um, Part of being into preparedness is to understand around us. And a lot of folks have pointed out, well, you've gotten into a lot of news and current event reporting. And yes, because history plus the things going on will inform how we should prepare. Um, Clearly, I'm not going to buy a canoe if I live in the desert because the chances of me getting a flood versus, say, a hurricane in the coast is greatly different. Um, if I live in an environment where there's no sun, you're not going to buy a bunch of solar panels because you may not get the solar you need. In any kind of why I do what I do, and this time I actually interesting report because it's a case where criminals, and we've heard a lot where criminals are getting away with a lot, including murder. Um, this guy did not. It wasn't murder, but he's definitely got a problem. I'll be right back. Let me talk real briefly about what happened and why this person is now dealing with what they're getting. Hey, what is going on? Thank you for joining me as always. And I did want to move on to the topic today, which is hulking Florida team. I didn't say that right. Um, Brandon Deppa, who severely beat teacher over Nintendo Switch, sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now, I was going to show you the video, but I've actually gotten flagged for showing videos because it's too shocking. Um, anyway, even though I guess the last time I did not put enough context to it. So this kid, Brendan Deppa, is a very large high school kid, and when I say very large, we're talking 6+ feet. Now, the hulking teenager who brutally pummeled a high school teacher unconscious over his oh, it cut me off, you son of a gun. Okay, Brendan Deppa, now 18, threw his head back after circuit judge Terrence Perkins handed down the punishment. Um, so he's going to go to jail. He will then get 15 years of probation after his release. He will be placed in a group home. Um, this is the kid. Now he's 18 now. This was, I think, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Oh, 5 years in state prison. There we go. He was charged with felony aggravated battery bodily harm after he attacked a paraprofessional, Joe Nadich, in a hallway. You all have probably seen this video. If you don't, I'll encourage you to look it up. I'm not going to play it here because I've already gotten two flags for putting footage of riots. Even though, but then there were two others I put footage that was just about as shocking and you know concerning, but I guess the way I'm putting the context in, I got flagged on some and not for others. So just to save me some stress, you guys look it up. Um, he attacked a paraprofessional. This guy uh, is I believe he is 6 foot. At the time, he was 6'4", and he's now 6'6", and weighed clearly over 225. The teacher he attacked was 5'2", weighed in at 120. She took the Nintendo Switch from him. She then left the room because he flipped out in the room. So she left the room to go to the principal's office to get security. He came out and hit her from behind and then proceeded to beat her until a coach and a few other people grabbed him and pulled him off. He was hauled off in handcuffs. Now, of course, his parents said, well, this is racist because, if he's an African American, he's a black kid, and it's not, you wouldn't have done this to a white kid. And the police said, no, we've arrested white kids who've done this too. You don't attack your teachers. And so that kind of got squashed. Um, Unfortunately, this individual had a history. And this is why I brought up the race concern is they brought up, well, it's would you have done this had he been another ethnicity? In reality, this was multiple times he had shoved other students, thrown things around the room, and not little things like he threw an eraser, like a whole desk. He just, because he's big, he picked up thump and he threw it. The kid had a history of violence. But I also have to question the school district. If you knew this kid was predisposed to outbursts, as big as he is and as strong as he is, why was there not a different arrangement in place? Why was he not in a more secure environment? Why was he in a general population of, kids who are struggling? But that big a kid with a history of lashing out is very difficult to control. Any two or three of us, if this guy started attacking people, we'd have a hell of a time as just your average guys in the street. Even if we have martial arts training, we have, law enforcement training, it's going to take two or three people to bring him down. And unless you taser him, and hopefully that works. Uh, what they did, they put that teacher in a no-win situation. She was disrupting the class with the game. She took the game away, and now, from what I heard, she not only has like vertigo issues because her inner ears from the beating she took. She loses her balance. She gets vertigo now. She gets migraines, and she has PTSD, which is understandable. I mean, so there are consequences, and that's the title of this video. There are consequences for people who are doing this, and I applaud the district attorney and the judge for putting him in jail and then insisting he be on probation in a group home under monitoring. Hopefully that solves the problem. He gets the help he needs. Is he the devil? Probably not. He's troubled, yes, but he's big, dangerous. And we need to understand that even if it's not a person's fault, if they're a danger to everybody around them, things have to get done. We've gotten this mentality in a lot of our communities where, oh well, he had a bad upbringing, so it's okay that he beat that woman, it's okay that he raped someone, it's okay that she stabbed the other girl, and we need to be rid of that. I'm glad to see the states are doing what the feds will not, and they're holding them accountable. I'm glad to see, he didn't get shot fighting cops or anything. Like, they took him into custody, he didn't resist. Hopefully this kid gets help. Who knows? He might one day be a valuable member of society. He may not. We don't know. But at least it didn't escalate. Um, my questions, though, even if they hold the criminal accountable, are we looking at how society as a whole is handling it? Why was this kid not um, put in a special class as opposed to being put with teachers where he could overpower a teacher? Uh, why was he allowed in the school in the general population? There are a lot of questions, and it's difficult because we don't know what the family is going through, and I get that. But if a dog gets rabies, I know this is a terrible analogy, but if a dog gets rabies, it's not the dog's fault. The dog didn't ask to get rabies. Nobody wants to shoot their dog, but you have to, because if you don't put the dog down, it's going to go and cause a greater problem. This is one of those cases where it's, I'm always a big believer in the rights of the individual, but when you have an individual who's causing harm or potentially a lot of harm, this is dangerous. And the problem is not every jurisdiction will address it, give the penalty, give the rehab, and get him off the streets. A lot of places will let them go. I've said a story about my coworker back a few years ago. His wife got cold cocked in the middle of a street in Denver. They were in 2:30 in the afternoon. The guy just came over and hit her. They obviously had a fight. He was a troubled individual. He'd already been let out 3 times for physical assaults of other people. By the time his trial ended for that incident, he had hit 4 more women. He was targeting women of no particular ethnicity. He had hit white, Hispanic, an Asian lady, and a black woman. He was just randomly punching women who were dressed in business attire. That was his trigger for whatever reason. If they were dressed in gym clothes or something else, apparently he wasn't interested. He would go for business women and punch them in the side of the head. That was also a big guy. How many lives have been affected? So, this is where, as a prepper, we need to understand not just how we prep at home, but what our area is, not just what's going on at our hometown, because I know what goes on here, but understanding if I go somewhere else, if I have to travel, visit a friend, take care of a loved one, what are the jurisdictions' behavior patterns? How do they deal with this kind of person? how do they address criminals? Because if there are consequences, you tend to have less crime. I know some people would disagree, but I firmly believe it. If I know I'm going to get an ass kicking for doing something, I probably, unless I'm a masochist, I'm not going to go do it because it's demented to do such a thing. In any case, folks, something to think about if you're traveling about, if you're out and about on the road, make sure that you understand what's around you, understand how the local laws work, and how they're going to address certain types of criminals. Because if they don't, if they're not giving consequences, if there are no consequences, if the society or the community sets it up such that dangerous people, regardless of their ethnicity or whatever, are allowed back in the street after causing harm to someone, you have just emboldened them to keep doing it because they don't believe there's going to be a penalty. And it gets worse. And that's why we're in the boat we're in. If you're traveling around, make sure call some local friends, call local coworkers. If I go to other areas, I'll call the local facilities and be like, hey, what are the rules? What's the law? Where's the best hotels? How do I avoid bad parts of town? They'll take 10 minutes of their day and send me a whole give me a whole detailed outlook of the local area. So when I show up, I have stacked the probabilities in my favor of avoiding a problem. I'm going to leave you with that one. You guys be safe out there, be careful. And I'm glad to see not only was he taken into custody, he did get a penalty, but hopefully this guy can get some help. As a human being, I hope his path gets better. But we never know. You guys be safe, be careful out there, and pay attention to what's going on around you and know the areas you're traveling. Bye.